Flooding is a natural disaster that's plagued southern Nevada residents for more than a century. Our desert climate mixed with the local terrain make for a perfect storm for flooding in our valley. Hello, I'm Betty Hollister and welcome to another edition of the Flood Channel. Coming up on today's show, we're taking a look at how the district is working to combat the problems of flooding in Clark County. Last December, despite nearly a full week of rain, see how the district's construction progress helped minimize the impacts to the community. Plus a look at how flooding has influenced development in our valley, and an update on our student outreach program. That's all coming up on this edition of the Flood Channel. The National Weather Service ranked this past December as the third wettest December on record. By the end of the month, meteorologists had measured nearly 2 inches of rain. Carrie Ann shows us that despite the wet weather, the effects to the community were minimal.
In a community that only averages 4.5 inches of rain a year, 2 inches in 1 month is a lot. Neighborhood streets were covered in floodwater. Meanwhile, the district's flood control facilities kicked it into overdrive. Several detention basins like this were filled more than 20 feet deep with runoff. But a storm like this is a real test that proves our system is working.
The winter storm first moved into the county late Friday night. By the following Thursday, nearly 5 inches of rain had fallen on the western side of the valley. There were reports of road closures in North Las Vegas, Red Rock, and near Blue Diamond. The light intensity but persistent rainfall blanketed the county. But thanks to the district's infrastructure, the Las Vegas Valley saw no major issues. And while the system worked exactly as designed, the hazardous conditions were something the district couldn't control. That's when monitoring the storm becomes important. The district does that with help from the National Weather Service.
One of our jobs are to protect lives and property, and we collect a lot of data. We collect things like radar imagery, radar data, and satellite data, and we use the upper air data from the radio sondes and ground truth from the rain gauges. And once we collect that data, we then use that to issue watches and warnings. A watch meaning that conditions are favorable for, in this case, flash flooding or severe thunderstorms. A warning means it's happening, it's imminent. Take action. When we issue a warning, you need to take action now. Now, the National Weather Service is the only entity that can issue a watch or a warning. When I issue that watch and warning, I need to disseminate that to the public. So we work very closely with our media partners to get that information out. And it really doesn't matter what media station you listen to, because they're getting all of that information directly from our office.
The National Weather Service makes forecasts. They're taking what little information they are really measuring, putting it into computer models and trying to forecast what's going on. They use our information to say what's actually going on. They can see the radar, but that's measuring the moisture at 10,000 feet above the ground. As far as what's going on the ground at street level, that's where our system is extremely helpful.
The Flood Control District's rain gauge network is instrumental into what we do. We use that as our ground truth. We issue products or expect something to happen, but we really don't know what's happening on the ground. And so we use the gauges that the Flood Control District has put up around the valley to figure out what's happening. As the rain is hitting those gauges, we're looking at that to see. And we're basing our decision on, should we keep a warning out? Do we need to issue a warning? Do we need to upgrade something based on what we're seeing? So in the December 2010 event, a lot of rain fell. We had 5 days worth of rain, which is really unheard of for our area.
It was a challenge in some areas. In the Las Vegas Valley, we had upwards of 2 inches in many locations. The flood control facilities worked very well, especially in the Las Vegas Valley. The west side of the valley, because of the way the moisture was moving into the valley, that's where our largest rainfall totals were measured, and many of the detention basins took quite a bit of water out there.
10 years ago, I'm not exactly sure what would have happened had 5 days worth of rain fallen. I could probably tell you that it would be a lot more significant and we would have seen a lot more flash flooding. And a lot of the difference is the fact that the Regional Flood Control District put all the infrastructure in the last 10, 12 years so much infrastructure has gone in that you are able to move that water and put it in detention basins so that it's not just flowing down and causing flash flooding issues.
If we would have had this same type of a system move through the area before there was a flood control district, I suspect there would have been a lot more closed roads. Areas like the Charleston Underpass definitely would have been closed for days. Because we are able to collect the water in the detention basins, funnel it into channels and into storm drains, the water, for the most part, is off the streets.
Online videos were posted of water flowing through channels, people driving through runoff on the streets, and of course, water rushing through the Imperial Palace parking garage. And while many people documented their experiences during the storm, the impacts were relatively minor. That wasn't the case for other parts of Clark County. In Mesquite, 2 homes were damaged when the Virgin River overflowed its banks due to the amount of water rushing through the area.
Well, in Mesquite, we have 3 major drainage areas. We have Town Wash, Pulsifer Wash, and Abbott Wash. And all of them areas we've concentrated our resources on in the past to provide flood control for all of the residents that live along the washes, and in essence, our entire community.
Right now, the Town Wash Detention Basin is completed upstream, up into the mountains where the development is. But from I-15 to the Virgin River, the channel is unlined. And so there's existing commercial and residential buildings adjacent to the wash which were susceptible to flooding. So it was important for us to fund the remaining portion of the channel from I-15 to the Virgin River. The Virgin River is the main source of the flooding when the rains come, especially in the wintertime. One of the reasons that the winter rains on the Virgin River can be much more damaging is because the tributary area extends high up into the mountains where it could snow. And if there's snow on the ground, when it rains, and a warm rain will melt that snow, and then it'll contribute to the rainfall. In 2005, there was a lot of snow on the ground when the floods came, and that made it worse. In 2010, there was not snow on the ground because it was a much warmer winter, but we could see that it still produced quite a lot of runoff.
The danger of the Virgin River overflowing is something the residents in Mesquite have been dealing with for years. When too much water flows through the area, the river can literally change paths. In preparation for the December storm, the city of Mesquite built a large berm to try to direct the water away from homes. And while that helped, some Mesquite residents still dealt with the effects of the storm firsthand.
They came in Tuesday and said that there was a chance that we were going to get some high water. We came back in Tuesday night and we had brooms and a big squeegee and that, and we was here until probably about 1:30. In the morning. Me and my wife were scooting water out of the doors and as much as possible. The water was up just above the baseboard here. I had to cut it up about here, the sheetrock, to pull all the insulation out and that. And then, like I said, this was all done. This just got painted yesterday. I've done that over there and textured it and that, and it's just getting ready to be painted. Right. But you can see the water, the line in the water here. I think they learned something from the 2005 flood. They were here, Johnny on the spot on Tuesday morning, after hours, on weekends, running equipment and everything else, getting dumpsters for us.
We attacked the 2010 flood differently. We went out onto the BLM property where we had a lot of material, silt and sand material left over from the 2005 flood, and we started constructing that dike, and that dike was completed in about 12 hours of work from our local contractors and their dozers. And then we worked right through as fast as we could building that dike to try to protect all the residents.
This dirt thing that they built was fantastic. I mean, we had half again the amount of water that we had in 2005 going through here. 2005 it was over the cupboards. This time it was inches.
Part of the problem in Mesquite is the Virgin River runs through not only Nevada, but also Utah and parts of Arizona. That makes controlling the river a complicated issue. Several jurisdictions will have to work together to truly minimize flooding in the area.
During events like this, the district partners with several organizations to track the path of the storm so that people who live in outlying areas can also be warned before flooding happens. Coming up next, more about the history of flooding in southern Nevada.
We have all seen the devastation that floods can cause to homes and lives in Clark County. Has your neighborhood or home ever been affected by major storms? Federal flood insurance is a smart and cost-effective investment if you think your home is vulnerable. Some easy-to-understand assessments can help determine if you need flood insurance. Call your insurance agent or call 1-888-CALL-FLOOD or visit the Regional Flood Control District's website for guidance. See if flood insurance makes sense for you.
Whenever you come to water in a roadway, think. If you think you can get across, you can't. If you think driving fast will get you through it, it won't. If you think it's not that deep, it is. Whenever you come to water, think. Then think again.
A reminder from the Clark County Regional Flood Control District.
Reports of flooding in Clark County date back more than 100 years. Today, those historical events can help engineers evaluate the risk of flooding in a certain area. Carrie Ann tells us how looking at the county's past can better prepare us for the future.
In the early days, community leaders took a piecemeal approach when it came to flood control. When problems arose, authorities would take action to fix the issue without considering the ramifications to development downstream. On this stretch of Jones Boulevard, the street is built on 2 different levels. At the time, it was the most western part of the city. It's believed the street was designed this way to help hold back floodwater as it flowed through the area.
Las Vegas was founded in 1905. Actually, as early as 1890, there's reports out of Lincoln County of flooding in this area. As you know, Clark County started in 1910, so when Las Vegas was founded, it was actually part of Lincoln County. There's a famous flood of 1906 that washed a whole section of train track out of it. Over 100 miles of railroad was washed away. In 1910, there was a similar flood down the Virgin River Gorge. What you saw is in the 1906 and 1910 floods was that there was an impact economically. Lives really weren't impacted. We were impacted by the fact that we could not get rail service for over 30 days, sometimes up to 6 weeks. Flooding in the valley has always occurred. It's just the way that the geography of Las Vegas is. You know, we live on a bowl that's turned on the side. And we actually had not had a major flood since the 20s. We'd had a little bit of events in the 30s, but by the 40s, after the war, everyone was coming into Vegas. This is a hospitable place. Then 1955 happened. June 13, 1955 was a massive flood. The flood was so large that it raged through the town, and half of the homes, which we estimate is about 6,000 homes in Las Vegas, were damaged. 70% of the homes lost power, and all major roads were inundated with floodwaters. 1975, Caesars Palace flood. Pretty famous flood. It was the first natural disaster to make national news.
To many longtime residents, the storm that hit 4th of July weekend in 1975 is known as the Caesars Palace flood. The massive storm slammed into southern Nevada, causing widespread flooding throughout the county. Police had to shut down part of the strip because of the amount of water rushing through the valley, and pictures of cars floating in the Caesars Palace parking lot were printed on the newspaper's front page. It's a storm Las Vegas resident Rosalie Ward still remembers.
And that's when the big flood came. I guess it was the biggest one they'd had since '55. That's what I had heard. The others were kind of, inconvenient, but the one in '75 was huge, and we couldn't go anywhere. We just was stuck at home. The roads were all washed out. I grabbed my camera and I went out looking because I know that, it had been raining, and when it kind of let off, that I went ahead and went out and took my camera and took a few pictures.
Newspaper clippings and photographs are all that remain of those early storms. The damage has been cleaned up, and thanks to the district, the valley has not seen those same impacts from flooding for more than 8 years. Across the county, a lot of work has been done to minimize the flood risk.
At the city, we were looking at BLM land, and we made our best judgment where a detention basin would work, given certain wash configurations, what have you. Went to the BLM and acquired those pieces, or at least had them earmarked for us until we had more engineering. as it did work out, those parcels that we reserved became many of the detention basin sites we have today, like the Gowan Detention Basin, the Oki Detention Basin, the Angel Park Detention Basin, the Rancho Detention Basin. I've been a resident here for 41 years, and I've seen a lot of flooding. You know, it just makes me feel good that I was part of an effort that took care of a whole host of problems.
I belong to the American Society of Civil Engineers. So we'd meet about once a month and talk about engineering things and things we might do to use some of our time in an effective way. And out of that discussion came an idea that maybe we should write down some of the history of infrastructure in southern Nevada before it got lost. So we decided, well, let's try to write a book. The value of the book, that was the reason we wanted to go to the schools with it. Hopefully we would get some interest and let some students understand how infrastructure actually occurs. Maybe we'd get a few engineers. It's nice to have, you know, people go into the engineering field. I think it's important.
In 2008, when I retired from the city of Las Vegas as the Director of Public Works, I was at my last official meeting with the Flood Control District Board, and when I left, I complimented the board. What I said was that the district kept its promise to the public. The money that it gathered, it was specifically used for flood control. It was efficiently used. It did not get diverted to other things. That money built the systems that today where's the hot spot? There aren't any.
A few years back, I went to go to an eye exam, so I decided to take my truck, and I started floating in my truck, honestly, and so I turned around and came home. And now, when it rains, I see waterfalls in my backyard, you know, off the mountainside, but all the channels are full, you know, and it's carrying away all that water. And it's so much better. I don't have to worry so much about it.
The work is not done yet. There are still systems that need to be built. If you liken it to a tree, the trunk and the main limbs are all in place, but there are smaller branches, smaller systems that need to be built to trap that water and take it safely into the channels and out to the Las Vegas Wash and out to Lake Mead.
There's still a lot of work to be done, but the district's master plan is helping keep the progress of flood control on track. Because we are the regional flood control district, political boundaries are obsolete and only a common goal remains: to protect the residents of southern Nevada from the damaging effects of floodwater.
When we come back, a look at the district's construction program.
Don't press your luck. Steer clear of floodwater.
I'm Agent Smith.
I'm Agent Jones.
And we're back busting people who pollute Clark County.
Oh, sir, you're gonna have to come with us.
What have I done now? Sir, did you know by washing your car at home puts chemicals and trash into storm drains?
Really? Car washes recycle water and they don't pollute Lake Mead.
Oh. Is Clark County your home?
And you don't like trash in your home?
No.
Then don't trash Clark County. It's our home too.
Okay.
At the district, our construction program is top priority. Carrie Ann takes a look at some of the projects underway today.
The storm this past December was a real test of our flood control network. Living in the desert, anytime that much rain falls, flooding is a possibility. The way our system handled that storm highlights how well the network functions. But like any network, if there's a portion not complete, an area may not be protected. That's why every project is a vital part of our master plan.
This is the Tropicana North Detention Basin. It's located just west of the Union Pacific Railroad and just north of Hacienda. It's in kind of a industrial warehouse type area. The Tropicana North Branch wash flows through this site. Historically, it used to cross the intersection at Industrial and actually flow over I-15 and into the old Dunes Golf Course, which is now the Monte Carlo in the city center. And so there's a lot of infrastructure and important businesses that will be protected by this project. The detention basin's under construction now. We expect it to be completed in July of 2011. The total cost was $2.6 million. Of that, only $600,000 is being paid by the Regional Flood Control District. The other $2 million or so is being paid by private developers who are benefiting from the protection of this project.
The Lower Flamingo Detention Basin will capture an inflow of about 3,000 cubic feet per second, and it will detain it and let an outflow of 900 cubic feet per second. The basin area is about 25 acres, but the overall project area, as you can see, is about 53 acres. It includes a park, so it has some multi-use features. The overall project cost is about $12.9 million, where $2.9 is the detention basin, and the rest of the funding comes from the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act, as well as a donation from the Frias Company. This basin actually has 3 points of inflow, one directly from the west, one from the northwest, and one from the southwest. And they'll all come in, be detained in here, and then drain through a system that eventually leads through the Imperial Palace and goes down into the Flamingo Wash. The park will have multi-purpose fields. It'll have basketball courts, trails, and some typical regular park amenities. The actual total project is scheduled to be completed in September of 2012. However, they're working on the basin aspects first, and the basin will be functional by the end of 2011. This project is beneficial because it takes an unusable area and it's going to detain the floodwaters for downstream, as well as provide the amenities for the neighborhood area. This area is very limited, and so it became a perfect spot for a multi-use facility.
Once complete, these projects will work with the rest of the network to help protect the valley from flooding. These are just a few of the newest additions to the system. Several other projects have recently been completed.
We currently have 83 detention basins that have been completed. We recently completed the Duck Creek Railroad Detention Basin, which is located near Rainbow and Cactus, as well as 550 miles of conveyance completed, which would include open channels, storm drains, and natural washes that were going to remain natural. We just completed the Flamingo Wash open channel project, which is between Desert Inn and Eastern. Included in the Flamingo Wash job was a trail component that was paid for by the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act. We try to incorporate those types of uses with our channels if we can. I mean, our channels and detention basins are only used really when it's raining, and so it's good to, during the dry periods of time to use those facilities as multiple use facilities.
The investment in the community is just more than just concrete and rebar in channels and dams. That's an investment in the society. It protects life and property. It protects the motoring public. It helps the first responders in an emergency that they don't have as many swiftwater rescues to make. And it's here forever. Once we've made this investment, we continue to fund the operation and maintenance of these projects. So it's not just for this one flood event, it's for many flood events, but as important for many generations to come.
We currently have 12 projects under construction actively right now. Those projects include 7 storm drain projects, which is a total of almost 5 miles of storm drain. We have 3 detention basin projects under construction. We do have 1 bridge replacement project, and we also have an open channel project up in the city of Mesquite. The total cost to the district of all of those projects for construction is about $82 million.
Working with the district for so many years, it was these last winter rains that finally it appears to me that the community is recognizing the benefits. It is very rewarding to see the community recognize the investment we made here. Because I know in my heart that what we have underground and what behind block walls and what's out of sight and out of mind is working during a flood event.
There's still a lot of work to be done to complete our entire construction program, but with every project that wraps up, another part of the community is better protected from flooding.
In addition to our construction program, educating the public about flood safety is another big goal at the district. After the break, we'll take a look at our student outreach program and how we're reminding kids to stay away from floodwater.
I'm Agent Smith. And I'm Agent Jones. And we're busting people who pollute Clark County.
Hey, who are you guys?
Sir, please step back.
Hey, what are you doing?
Aha! Judged by your reaction, you don't like trash.
No.
Sir, this is yours. We saw you dump it out of your car.
Well, I was...
Sir, did you know trash can clog storm drains, cause flooding, and pollute Lake Mead?
Sir, is Clark County your home?
Well, yeah.
And you don't like trash in your home?
No.
Then why would you dump trash in Clark County? Don't trash Clark County. It's our home, too.
The district has 2 main missions, keeping floodwater away from people and keeping people away from floodwater. The district's public information program is tasked with reminding everyone to be flood safe, including kids. Carrie Ann gives us a quick lesson about how we reach that young audience.
Good afternoon, boys and girls. Good afternoon. My name is Mrs. M, and I work for the Regional Flood Control District. Okay, so I want you guys to think really hard. What do you think the Flood Control District does? What do I do at my job? It's called the Flood Control District.
The Student Outreach Program is an important aspect of the district's public information campaign. Every year, district staff speaks to an average of 8,000 second and third grade students. Each presentation focuses on the dangers of floodwater. It's a lesson teachers think is extremely important.
I moved to Vegas from Michigan in July of '99. I made it here 2 days before that big flood happened. And because I was, drove 2 days pretty much without stopping, I remember waking up, turning on the TV and going, oh, I wonder where that is, not knowing that it was right outside. So I was just amazed at how people were getting airlifted and everything just from that. So I had no idea that flooding could be just this dangerous out here.
Do you think you could stand up if water was rushing at you that fast?
During the 30-minute presentation, the students learn about flash flood season, why the valley floods, and most importantly, the 3 Ds of flood safety.
The first one is floodwater is very dangerous. It can rush up to 30 miles per hour. So the second D is floodwater is very dirty. Go home and tell your mom and dad that the third D is don't drive, because you're safer waiting inside and waiting out the storm than you are trying to drive home in floodwater.
A summer storm in 2003 is the last time the valley saw extensive damage from flooding. Since many of the students weren't born at that time, the video helps them see the impacts.
I liked when that water drop was talking about how not to play in the water and stuff.
I think you were very successful. She was very animated. She grabbed their attention, and then they got to have a little video at the end, which also reiterated everything that she said. I like that it hit home for them because it's like, you know what? Wow, that can and it possibly will happen to me in my lifetime. I thought it was phenomenal.
The program fulfills the guidelines for the school district's curriculum essential framework. That means teachers are able to use the program to help meet health and science requirements. That's a huge plus for teachers, and students say they're learning a lot about what to do the next time it rains.
I'm just going to stay inside and, watch TV. I didn't know how dangerous floodwater is. I will never play in the detention basins or the channels like we saw people do in the video.
And that's why there's some warning signs that have been set up on the TV and on the radio that warn people when it is flooding outside. Okay, the first one is a flash flood watch. That means watch out because it's raining and a flood could be coming. The second one is a flash flood warning. That means it's already raining and it's already flooding, so stay inside.
I would be super scared if I was in it.
Are you guys gonna play in floodwater? No, that's what I like to hear.
The Student Outreach Program is a free resource that's available to all public and private elementary schools in Clark County. If you'd like to get your class scheduled for a flood safety presentation, call the number on your screen, 685-0000. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Flood Channel. Remember to log on to our website at regionalflood.org for more information, and you can also find us on Facebook. For all of us here at the Flood Channel, I'm Betty Hollister, and remember to always be flood safe.